Friends, hello everyone. This is the weekday routine of Wall Street, and today we are talking about the American global financial markets, what's happening there, and where it's all heading. So get comfortable, grab some popcorn, and let's get started. Let's probably start with the fact that the data coming to us now is the transcription of conference calls following the earnings season in the United States. And we see that the word recession in these transcriptions has reached a minimum since the start of 2022. So let's dive into the analysis and explore the implications of this significant decrease in the mention of recession in the conference call transcriptions. Just a reminder that in 2022, especially in the middle, a huge number of companies warned investors about a potential recession ahead, but as it turned out, it did not happen. This soft landing, it's happening somewhere now, and it's unclear if it's happening at all, this landing, because overall, we're not landing in terms of GDP, but growth is happening. I'll show you the chart a little later. And here, on the one hand, I seem to be in a good mood because the management has stopped talking about a potential recession, and it seems like everything is good ahead. However, despite any potential deception, it appears that the topic of a recession is currently not being discussed, and it is at this very moment that it will approach us in the near future. For instance, here are the GDP figures for the United States of America. In the Eurozone, we can observe that on one hand, everything was declining similarly until 23. But now we perceive that the US GDP is experiencing a positive trend. It is evident how they outsmarted the Europeans and achieved significant growth. In many ways, to be truthful, America is reaping substantial benefits from the current geopolitical situation and is currently exporting liquefied natural gas and oil to its allies at very favorable prices, generating enormous profits from it. Meanwhile, Europeans are currently purchasing these energy sources at high prices in the US and the Middle East, rather than at lower prices in Russia. Just yesterday, I believe, there was an interview with the president of France, Macron, and he was questioned about rumors that the largest French oil company, Total, is considering relocating its listing from France to the United States due to higher valuations of companies there compared to Europe or, for instance, Asia. This indicates the attractiveness of the US market for international companies and the advantages they can gain by being listed there. Overall, it is clear that the United States has strategically positioned itself to capitalize on the current economic landscape and is leveraging its resources to maximize its gains. He stated that he hopes this will not occur and will take all necessary measures to prevent it from happening because very recently, Shell also indicated the potential of relocating its main listing from Britain to the United States. Just a reminder, not long ago, another company performed the same deceptive tactic. One of the key factors driving the current state of the Kazakh financial market is the presence of Kaspi Company. They relocated their listing from the London Stock Exchange to the Nasdaq exchange overseas and ultimately enhanced their capitalization by approximately 1.5 times exactly. Here, please, you move your listing to American platforms and receive a company valuation reevaluation of 1.5 to 2 times. Just on Friday, the initial public offering of the Chinese electric car manufacturer Zeekr occurred. Also a very good assessment, that is, the United States are actively using the current geopolitical situation to make good money by supplying weapons to those who need them, energy resources to others, and also luring away some clients. Well, let's remember, let's say the First World War, the Second World War. Europe is completely in ruins, both in the First World War and in the Second. And thanks to these two world wars, the United States becomes the dominant economic power in the world because the United States, again, rebuilds Europe, which after the First World War gives Europe loans. And after the Second World War, they rebuild Europe with the Marshall Plan. A huge amount of money is loaned to Europe and so on and so forth. But now we see the same thing. Yes, there is conflict in Europe. America provides weapons to everyone, naturally updating old ones with new ones, providing credits to everyone, supplying energy resources at maximum prices, and so on and so forth. In general, America always learns to take advantage of the geopolitical situation in the world, being far away from everyone, to make good money out of it. We'll talk about it later, about gas. However, there is one problem. The US national debt is also growing at catastrophic rates. At the time of recording this video, I think it's already over 34 trillion. meaning it was calculated that every 100 days, $1 trillion, the debt of the United States of America increases by $1 trillion. Here are the most recent statistics. I was just examining them yesterday. The United States of America already has to make payments of more than $800 billion per year in order to service its national debt. It is anticipated that in the foreseeable future, within a time frame of approximately a year and a half, the budget of the United States will have to allocate over $1 trillion solely for the purpose of paying interest on its debt. Simply paying interest. I remind you that approximately around 1 trillion now we have in the United States of America, that is defense spending. So the United States spends about $1 trillion on military bases around the world, and now will spend about the same on servicing its own debt. So that's how it is. And here, of course, everyone is afraid that a spiral of debt collapse will begin, in the sense that your debt servicing becomes higher, and at some point you will have to cut the budget, cut expenses just to service your own debt. And here, theoretically, devaluation of the dollar or devaluation of any currency should help us, as devaluation helps everyone everywhere. You devalue it and consequently, in this case, collect more taxes and work with debt more easily. If the pace of the national debt remains the same in the US, then in the medium term, we are not discussing next year, but rather the next 3, 5, up to 10 years. What actions should the United States take to address this issue? Either significantly decrease taxes, which is presently a challenging task, or opt to devalue its own currency as a possible solution. And here, of course, all such dangers are concealed. The next, though, is a good time. Currently, in the first part of our program, we're discussing macroeconomics and, in general, global events. Good data literally emerged, I believe, in the previous week. This is a buyback, which means the repurchase of its own shares from the market. And we see that this buyback of shares by American corporations has reached its peak, which was in 2018. Companies have money but don't invest due to lack of opportunities, so they buy back their own shares from the market instead of making investments when all markets are occupied. And according to data from Goldman Sachs, more specifically, their analysts are predicting that the years 2024 and 2025, particularly 2025, will be record-breaking in terms of share repurchases by the companies that are part of the S&P 500 index. Occasionally, everything appears to be fine here as well, indicating that we do not observe any issues on the horizon. Bloomberg also published an article yesterday about analysts' forecast. According to the article, analysts believe that looking ahead to the beginning of 2025, companies, once again included in the S&P 500 index, will demonstrate a confident growth in profits on a quarterly basis, indicating a positive outlook for the future. So we see these blue bars on our chart. These are some forecasted values indicating that everything will be fine. Yes, there won't be any growth of more than 20%, but overall everyone expects that the average growth will be 5 to 10%, and that will be good. So you see, instead of being scared in 2022 that everything will be bad, everything will be awful, recession ahead, now we are being fed by a large number of analysts, fed with good data. You see, Goldman Sachs says everything will be fine, there will be buybacks. Bloomberg analysts say, don't worry, everything will be great. Now, I believe we must do the opposite. If everyone says everything will be fine, perhaps it's time to prepare for a crisis situation. So when they try to convince you like, hey, don't stress, everything's fine, everything will be wonderful. In my perspective, it is my belief that there are undoubtedly major players who own newspapers, including Bloomberg, who might, in my opinion, strategically push certain narratives to the public about the future and play into all of this complex situation that we are currently witnessing. So it's the good old market manipulation, but it has become, you see, more cunning. No one has cancelled it. So all the information I am currently reading, analysts everywhere are stating that everything will be fine, gentlemen, do not worry, invest, everything will turn out to be great. And this is what is currently bothering me the most. Additionally, I am also concerned about the reverse situation. In a recent development, I would like to remind you that just last week, the annual Berkshire shareholders meeting, led by Buffett, took place. It was reported that Buffett sold some Apple shares from his portfolio, resulting in the company's cash position reaching around $180 billion after all these transactions. This news has garnered significant attention due to the magnitude of the cash position and the impact it may have on the market. So this is a record-breaking value for the company. So you can see how Buffett is accumulating cash. On one hand, it is imperative to comprehend that Warren Buffett is fundamentally an insider in the financial markets. He talks to a huge number of people, and the fact that he's collecting cash, it could be dangerous because he might anticipate some crisis. Yes, but on the other hand, if we look, we can see that by 2008, the crisis, on the contrary, had a decreasing cash share. In 2020, he gathered cash. You see, part of it went later. So in 2022, he began purchasing stocks. But again, now it's accumulating. And maybe this falls into the realm of conspiracy theories, but when all analysts say everything is fine, a bright future lies ahead for corporations. On the other hand, Warren Buffett is pumping cash into the company and clearly preparing possibly to buy all of this for a bargain in the near future. But once again, this is just a matter of fantasy. Perhaps it will happen, perhaps it is simply high rates and Warren Buffett made a decision to earn some interest. Because the US government pays $800 in interest yearly, and Warren Buffett thought, why not take some of that money for herself through investments in these bonds? So these conflicting data that are currently emerging in the analytics, which I examine on a daily basis, and we are gradually making a transition to our main companies as part of a gradual and strategic process. And I'll remind you that we have a Telegram channel, Wall Street Pro, where I post data, the ones you see on your charts right now. Basically, I subsequently, in preparation for our video, extract the most fascinating graphs from the previous 2 weeks that have passed. Therefore, Wall Street Pro. Furthermore, BitStreet Pro is a distinct direction on blockchain where I discuss the investments we make, the latest news, and the amount of profit we generate. So global markets for me at this moment are not only investments in global companies, but also investments in various interesting projects, themes that emerge in blockchain technology as both regulated and unregulated environments. So subscribe, links below in the description of this video. But now let's get into the specifics. Let's start probably with something important. As I analyze reports, I remind you that I analyze reports for you in the largest American corporations and the most interesting ones on our website, Wall Street Pro. And every time I analyze, I see some trends that are happening now. If we take the largest American technology companies such as Alphabet or Microsoft or Zuckerberg's company, we will see an interesting pattern of behavior of these companies. In the recent quarters, we see, well, at least on the right chart, specifically Alphabet and Microsoft, we see a record increase in capital expenditures. We observe the identical phenomenon with Zuckerberg's company, which has made a commitment to achieve record levels of capital expenditures amounting to $40 billion annually for the company. Before this, the company was spending, as we can see, just over $15 billion in 2020, and now it's $40 billion. We are currently witnessing the same picture in the final report of the Tesla company. Tesla has a record-breaking negative free cash flow, which is the highest in its history. -2, just above $2.5 billion. Unprecedented. Let's analyze it together. I am uncertain about the amount here, but I am aware that for 15 consecutive quarters, there has been positive free cash flow. So Tesla generated a good cash flow for its shareholders and then a negative one. And this is primarily due to the fact that the company, like its, you could say, partly competitors, but competitors in artificial intelligence, everyone is rushing to create their own developments based on artificial intelligence because everyone understands that now. Maybe it's still like that. Well, yes, artificial intelligence, like a cool thing there, Chatty Cathy, something answers questions, does something there. But in a year, another year, a third, we will be horrified that humanity has created. Now I will exhibit a concise video. This is GPTO chatbot, which was actually showcased and introduced to the public just 1 day ago. And you'll quickly see why the biggest US firms are making massive capital investments now. I'm opening up. Let us just listen. Once upon a time, there was a robot named Byte, an automaton with a sharpness that matched its name. Can you perform this task in a robotic manner at present, commencing the use of an intense and theatrical robotic voice? Once upon a time, in a distant land, a story unfolded in daylight. The hero was brave, the villain cunning, but in the end, good triumphed. They lived happily in a world of joy, and they lived circuitly ever after. But Gaskar wants to know if GPG 4.0 is capable of real-time translation. Mark, I am not looking, in case whales had the ability to communicate verbally, what message would you choose to convey if given the opportunity to converse with them? How do we solve linear equations? Of course, yes. This is merely an illustration of the capabilities that the recently developed GPT-O chatbot is already capable of performing. So he is already speaking to you, he is changing. So there is the voice of the girl who is speaking to you in the intonations. So this is no longer the voice synthesizer that we could see I don't know, in Amazon or in Apple, yes, in Siri. So this is a completely different level. And this is now in the moment, I mean, Chatty AI will roll out for users in the coming weeks. You'll be able to just chat with it like with a friend. So you take the phone and say, well, tell me a story or let's chat. So you have the ability to practice different languages. That is, we see that it speaks in different languages. Please learn Spanish, French, include. And ChatGPT is conversing with you in this language. Perhaps you will inquire if he can impart some phrases to you. So this is something already worldwide. So he will create illustrations and have conversations with you. That's it. It's even hard for me to imagine what will come next. Maybe some robots with artificial intelligence. You will not need husbands or wives. You will live with robots like these. And imagine which companies, which will break ahead, which will be able to offer top services like these. So, because artificial intelligence, you can, put in a car, in a robot, in a phone, it could be your best friend. And now $1 billion is being spent there. Well, I'll tell you, among these charts, there is no Amazon. The latest report from Amazon showed that they spend more than anyone. Indeed, not on AI, though they invest significantly there, but among the largest US companies, Amazon currently takes the lead in capital expenditures. Last year, they spent $60 billion, which is more than Microsoft, Alphabet, or companies like Zuckerberg's, for example. So the capital expenditures are just insane. Company 40 here, 50. They spend somewhere around, only these four companies spend over $200 billion a year. Yes, over 200 billion, no, 4 or 5 companies, $200 billion on servers, artificial intelligence, infrastructure for all of this. Therefore, in the coming years, we will simply witness the world turning upside down before our eyes. If you're a taxi driver, if your job is related to basic skills, there is a possibility that you will soon lose your job and be out of work. So I repeat once again, if you have the opportunity to maximize your earnings now, it's to save and invest in good companies, including blockchain. There are interesting projects. In real estate, do it as soon as possible, because in the near future, you may either be fired from your job or you will have to undergo a major retraining. You need to retrain now, guys, so be careful. As for these companies themselves, we are talking about the companies that are part of the S&P 500 index, and they are already quite expensive. So look, the identical Amazon, it is presently trading at its highest historical levels in the market. Look, here's the historical high, and there we are again. Alphabet, represented by Google, has already surpassed the historical high, trading higher against the backdrop of a good report. What else do we have? Apple, the only one limping like that. Even Apple somehow went up against the backdrop of a $100 billion buyback announcement, although the situation there is not very good either. The only thing probably at Apple, when the report was released in February 2024, I stated that, for the time being, my plan is right here. A fair price for Apple would be about $130, and it should reach that point due to declining sales in China. iPad sales have dropped, Mac sales are not doing well either, and just last week we saw Apple's presentation where they introduced a slightly updated iPad with the new M4 processor. I'm not sure how much this iPad with the new processor will help sales, maybe just give them a slight boost, but Apple doesn't seem to offer anything groundbreaking anymore. Additionally, there are rumors circulating that Apple may undergo a change in its chief executive officer, and the new CEO, as per the rumors, is not especially inclined towards innovation. To be completely honest, I have genuine concerns about Apple and whether or not I should consider shorting the stock in any way, shape, or form. They only mentioned a 100 billion buyback, but honestly, with the market cap at 2.8 trillion, it's unclear if this will truly affect the price. And, for instance, the very same Microsoft. In my perspective, Microsoft is currently the absolute best company in the entire world, among the largest, because they have successfully obtained everything. They did everything possible. They managed to capture the biggest trend that was already there before anyone else. Moving to the cloud, if we recall, there was Dropbox and other services, and here's Amazon. Oh, Amazon, I mean Amazon, by the way, also, but Microsoft captured this cloud, and now in 2023 to 2024, they are capturing the cloud related to AI as well. Yes, so these investments in OpenAI, and actually there's Copilot they are developing, so there will be an incredibly interesting future here, how it will unfold. But all stocks are at their maximum values, near historical highs. Naturally, there is no desire to rush there and buy them at the moment. The only thing, of course, is the presentation. Make sure to watch it after this video, chat.gpt. 4.0, there are many examples. I only showed a very small piece of this video presentation. This is incredible. I simply cannot wait. Well, fundamentally, you truly acquire your own assistant in your phone in your native language, and you can practice any other language with it, such as an English teacher. In addition, by the way, they also immediately encounter problems and face challenges right from the start. Yes, all right. And by the way, we will also utilize a neural network to translate this video into English, and we will establish a separate channel dedicated to English-speaking viewers. Perhaps this identical channel will also be available in German, Arabic, and other languages. Therefore, anticipate your humble servant to quickly acquire the ability to speak in multiple languages, and we are currently going to transmit this globally. So artificial intelligence will certainly make a big difference. Let's get back to our business. Let's move on. Tesla, let's touch on gas a little bit, but only partially because we've already talked a lot about it in the recent videos. According to Bloomberg data released yesterday, it is revealed that Norway, for example, currently holds a significant 30% share of the gas supply in Europe. In the past, the same share was held by Russia, but now Russia accounts for approximately 15% of the European gas market. It has lost about half of its supplies and currently mainly supplies LNG and a small amount of pipeline gas. Meanwhile, the United States has realized its dream of becoming the second largest gas supplier to Europe in terms of volume. The European gas market used to be referred to as premium, with a good premium on supply, expensive contracts, and heavy reliance on Russia as the largest supplier. However, the US has longed for Russia as the largest supplier to exit this arena, and this dream has finally come true. Both the US and its companies, I remind you, have found huge gas reserves on the shelf in the US, which the United States as a whole do not need so much. So we will examine gas prices together. We will initiate oil and gas with you, that is oil and gas, and here we will simply commence a contract with you. Look at what's happening with gas prices in the US right now. They are at record lows. Why? Well, it seems like there are supplies going to the US, but there's so much gas in the US and so few export terminals that huge volumes of gas just stay within the United States, keeping prices low. There are, of course, positive aspects to this. As we have already discussed, there are several European companies that want to switch the listing of their stocks from Europe to the United States of America. But besides listing in the US, there is another advantage which is also present in China, their main geopolitical rival, and that is cheap energy. Do not forget that affordable energy is highly crucial in industrial production, such as in petrochemistry and the chemical industry, for instance, as it plays a vital role. And if you have cheap gas, you can produce cheap fertilizers, cheap petrochemicals, make plastics cheaply, and so on and so on. Accordingly, Europeans who are now receiving expensive American gas instead of cheap Russian gas, as well as higher priced Norwegian and Middle Eastern gas, have started to relocate, move, including to the US, and are beginning to build factories in China, so they are simply flying away to the US and China. Due to this, we are witnessing a remarkably low GDP growth rate in Europe, as a significant number of refugees are fleeing from the region. Additionally, Europe is grappling with numerous problems, including an alarming increase in the level of crime. The combination of high taxes, excessive regulation in various sectors, suffocating laws that impose heavy burdens on many businesses, and consequently soaring energy prices have further exacerbated the already challenging situation in the region. And so the United States benefits from low prices in this regard. But on the other hand, the companies that extract this gas from the shelf, they suffer. They suffer greatly. They are unable to export this gas, so it is directed to the domestic market in the United States, where it is currently at its lowest levels. So, In the past, I told you, look at what a wonderful level we have, guys. What a wonderful level we have achieved. For the past month and a half, we have all been discussing this level, meaning we have been talking about when and where to buy. But in the end, I purchased, in addition to purchasing companies, now we will discuss them, I purchased, opened a special account just out of curiosity. I needed to open one. I do not have a futures account on the American market at the moment. And I simply opened a Forex account, with companies that deal with CFDs. Yes, so I purchased futures on American gas through CFDs. Well, I'm an old trader already. I can't hold on for long. In a company, I can hold for years, but not with futures. But in the end, I managed to ride it out, guys. Look, we managed to ride the breakout of this level. Over 20%. I think the chances are much higher to grow. But let me brag. I rode these 20%, closed all positions on futures, now it's only in companies, and bought myself new watches, like these, just in a week. Long time. I've been into purely from trading, haven't pulled out money for many years. I always saw it as an investment, but here it ended up being a gas deal and I ended up purchasing a watch. Well, I did not really need the watch, but it was just cool, just to make money like in the good old days when I was a trader and earned a living purely from trading and had no other source of income. Earned from watches, small amount remaining, kept in brokerage account, hopeful for future deals to capitalize on the remaining funds. There, again, it turned out that they charged me huge amounts of money for those swaps, so I got in with a 10th leverage, right? And there they also took a decent amount from me. These foreign exchange firms make good money, of course. Okay, let's concentrate on what I've purchased now and what I have not bought yet, Look, the Canadian company Enbridge. We have it in our portfolio and on the breakout at the level of 37 US dollars, acquired more Enbridge shares for our investment. One. Second, acquired a little more, yes, took a little bit. So Kinder Morgan, sorry, it's not included in this list. I apologize for the inconvenience caused by its absence. These are our MLP companies. Purchased a slightly larger amount of Kinder Morgan, also on the breakout at the price level of $18.90 per share. Currently, one OCO is trading above $82, exceeding expectations. Traders should be alert for a potential breakout as the price continues to rise. When it comes to pure producers, considering that all of these companies are primarily involved in transportation, Chesapeake stands out as the main player we are currently focusing on, without a doubt. I have a total of 2 alerts, one at the right level 91 and the other at the right level 93, but there is currently no movement detected in this area. So managed to earn money on gas by myself, companies are slightly bought, waiting for the newspaper. Perhaps EQT as well, let's see. However, yes, maybe set up some kind of alert here too. It would be wise to stay informed. EQT currently has a yield, for example, the same in terms of dividends. So regarding gas, here's a small update on what happened next. And a good chart showed that before we reached this 2-week-old chart, it showed that gas prices had been falling for 5 weeks in a row, and this was the longest period since the beginning of 2019 to early 2020, the start of the 20th century. Moving forward, the subsequent significant news at the junction of energy and Microsoft Corporation. Microsoft came to our company, to ours in quotes, this company to which we have been investing for many, many years, a company called Brookfield Renewable Partners, and said that Microsoft said that since apparently they now have huge projects for building data centers for processing artificial intelligence data, they also want to appear apparently in the eyes of investors, in the eyes of the state, as, green, beautiful, that energy is derived from renewable energy sources. And they provided the company Brookfield Renewable with the opportunity to install 10 gigawatts of power. This is a whole huge capacity of 10 gigawatts. And when we talk now about energy, we open our list of renewables, the list of renewable energy companies, and here is our favorite, of course, Brookfield Renewable Company. Can you believe what happened? It was like a rocket. I immediately shared this incredible news on Telegram and without hesitation made the decision to buy it right then and there. When Microsoft comes to you and says, I want to buy 10 gigawatts of power, you don't need to think. You need to sell 10 gigawatts of power and buy more shares. The news was released on May 1st and 2nd, right at the opening. I initially missed it as well, but later noticed it. I saw it at $1.26 and purchased Brookfield, which was similar to that. We broke through all possible downward trends. I was hoping for some kind of rebound or correction in order to purchase more, but it has not happened yet. So, guys, expect a correction. If it happens, you can consider adding Brookfield Renewable somewhere. Here, of course, there is tremendous synergy. This whole thing has stirred up the market because the largest American company, NextEra Energy, is renewable. Observe all the buzz that is going on. I mean, they have sensed once again that there could be some mega deals occurring here. Just a reminder, in 2020, for example, after the pandemic, when everyone there started talking again about renewable energy sources, check the price of Brookfield Renewable. It was $62. Back then, there was hype and excitement around this topic, but it eventually died down and a normal price was established for Brookfield. Therefore, throughout this correction, I believe it is safe to establish positions, including in this particular stock. Let's proceed. Well, when it comes to the United States, let's talk about the events of the last year. Look now at why I inserted the chart here. If we look together somewhere in the mid-2000s, 2005 to 2006, and up to 2023, there was a stagnation in electricity consumption in the United States. Stagnation, yes, it's like population increased, economy grew, but consumed energy volumes didn't increase and sometimes even fell in certain periods. This was also observed due to energy efficiency, more energy efficient production, more energy efficient items, for example, light bulbs and so on. But now we see a forecast until 2035 indicating a significant growth in electricity consumption in the United States of America. I think this will be the case worldwide. Particularly in developed nations, due to solar energy, solar wind generation will experience significant growth, and there will be a transition from coal to natural gas. These three directions are VIA and gas. This is probably where we should consider building some of our investments together. This is an increasing energy consumption. That is, during the period when this process will be ongoing, there may not be enough new capacities and prices could soar, including both gas and electricity. Where does the demand for electricity come from? Certainly it is data centers. Next, it is the transition to electric vehicles that is noteworthy. Imagine the number of battery stations and generations of electric generation that will need to be built there. It's not just two, but a significant amount. Moreover, it is already electrical networks to replace them. Hence, in the next 10, 15 years, there will be a massive transformation of everything. And of course, artificial intelligence. These are most likely the trends and tendencies that we anticipate for the upcoming decades ahead. And now we have conversed about energy with you here. Another significant event is, of course, it is rarely the case that IPOs of Chinese companies take place, but on Friday, the Chinese company Zeekr went public and became listed on the stock market. I believe you have already had the opportunity to hear about or see this Zeekr car quite extensively. He competes effectively with Tesla. The initial public offering took place, so the IPO was approximately, I believe, $21. And yesterday, for example, the stock experienced a significant surge, reaching a value of $32. That's very good, meaning there is demand and they are listed in the United States in the form of American depository receipts. It is significant that the US-China relationship is not yet so deteriorated that Chinese companies are not being listed in the US. Also, as mentioned at the start of our video, the company's valuation in the US is much higher than anywhere else in the world. And of course, many, especially technological companies, benefit from this. But now pay attention. Looking at the history of similar companies going public, for example, NIO, just a reminder, it also went public in the US. By the way, here it is, yes, listed. So also a good trading opening, opened at $5, then soared to $12, well, and then a year later the company was worth $1.20. Yes, then there was hype again, but before that, well, I mean, we see the placement of Li Auto, which I really love, reports that we are going through. Well, here it is from the moment of the IPO. Just a moment, there is also IPO, but it hasn't dropped significantly, at least held its ground. Right behind it, there is a very impressive performance, and if you had invested even on the first day of trading, after 4 or 5 years, you would have had a return of 64% annually, which is not bad, around 10% per year. Although at the time, it could have been even higher. Li is a good example, probably, yes. Xpeng, well, since the IPO, the stock price has dropped from $22 to $8. it's not a lucky situation here, well, and so on and so forth. Therefore, it's a good sign, Zeekr. But at current prices, of course, we don't want to buy. We won't. We will be eagerly awaiting good, juicy corrections. Recently, US President Biden has signed or will sign, we need to check, there are too many signed documents there, but the increase in tariffs on the import of Chinese cars into the US, and this could potentially lead to a trade war between China and the US, and of course then Zeekr may not feel as good as it could, which would have an impact on its overall experience and perception. Therefore, it is crucial to carefully analyze the potential consequences and implications of this decision. Well, that's all regarding the American stock market. Let's briefly take a look at what happened in China, because we had a video coming out in China before this where I said sell the US, buy China, and overall, sometimes I guess, just a reminder, I have a significant wager on Chinese IT companies and the Chinese Hong Kong market in general. I probably detailed this about a month and a half, maybe 2 months ago, and the essence was that we sold too much to China. Too much geopolitical pressure, internal pressure. Overall, I saw what the Western press is doing. They made every effort to discredit, let's say, undermine the reputation of China and the Chinese stock market through various means and tactics. So they were leaking all the bad stuff. I mean, a bunch of investigations, how bad things are in China, how they're about to collapse in China. Due to this, investors sold Chinese stocks at very low prices. For instance, the technology sector in China had a PE ratio. Some companies had a price to earnings ratio of 8 or 9 or 10, for example, while in the US it was twice as expensive. Even in India it was twice as expensive. So there's a big bet on China now. Hopefully it'll pay off. Here we see, for instance, this broad market, this ETF. I didn't buy companies as ETFs. They are now probably on average from my purchase somewhere around here, there, plus 13, plus 14 on the broad market. Tech companies also bought around here, plus slash, they give about the same so far. I believe it'll be higher in percentages too, like with gas, meaning there's a chance, like with gas, to make their IDK 1-2x, well, to make 1-2x here relatively, maybe easily if there's a buzz, but we'll see. The situation with China for now, this week, a report is coming out, and here it is. The report just came out now as I'm talking. The Alibaba report is released. Not a very good report, trading down 4% in pre-market, profits dropped by 5%, and so on. Literally, I think tomorrow, the day after, more precisely, most likely, we'll review this report on the website. I will carefully analyze it and share my opinion, providing detailed numbers and information about it to ensure a comprehensive evaluation. So don't forget to subscribe to our analytical website where we analyze company financial reports, and there's more interesting stuff ahead. Now that the reporting season is over, we will analyze gas companies in the US on the website, looking at the most interesting ones, and we will invest our money in some of them. That's all for now. This was Dimitri. As always, give it a like. Don't forget to leave comments if you enjoyed it, and if you have any suggestions or feedback, feel free to write them down. Thank you for being with me today, and please don't forget, next week we have a webinar, link provided below. I hope to see you there. Goodbye everyone. Until we meet again, farewell.